My name is James Pieratt, and this is part 2 of Thug Life, the 500-mile ultramarathon story. As I kind of touched on before, my preparation for these events is always a pretty even split of strength training and endurance training, which a lot of people will kind of find counterintuitive. They would think, like, if you're getting ready to run for 500 miles, you should just do a lot of running. And I mean, you definitely need to do that to become efficient and specific at what you're trying to do. I kind of approach these things as more of like you're getting your body acclimated to a more hostile environment. And so to that end, I like to make my body as strong and as resilient and durable as possible. And the best way to do that generally is to lift and carry heavy weights. A lot of people picture runners training, they picture people doing intervals on the track or just doing, skinny guys doing these long, drawn out trail runs. But to be honest, strength training is an equal part of my conditioning and preparation for an event like this, because it's just, in terms of just injury resistance alone, it's worth it. However, the stronger you are, the more power and work capacity your body has, the less of a toll each single individual step takes on you. The bigger your engine is and the more robust your joints and your suspension is, the more likely it is that you're going to finish something like a 500-mile trail run. So I never neglect strength training. Anyone who kind of follows me knows that my training is specifically all pretty functional. So like I said, a lot of compound lifts and weighted carries and targeted accessories to make sure everything's where it's supposed to be. I've been using the Blueprint and Appalachia programs together to kind of prepare for this, both of which bring both durability and work capacity. I call it locomotive training. In terms of this particular camp, I just finished up all of my major preparations, and honestly, it went really well. No preparation for any event or camp for any fight or whatever you're doing. It's never perfect. And if it is, you always find yourself kind of suspicious. You're waiting for the other shoe to drop. But this one went pretty well overall. I have a little issue with my left hamstring that's kind of been dogging me, and a tiny little bit of turf toe on one side. But overall, I feel great. The preparation for this event was way shorter than would normally be advised. It was only 8 weeks. Traditionally, I would have wanted, anyone would have wanted much longer, something more like, definitely not less than 16 weeks for sure. I wanted to do this, I wanted to leave, kind of initiate the whole event on the weekend that would have been my dad's birthday. So that gave me exactly 8 weeks to prepare. And so I did what I could with that, and all things considered, it went really well. Overall volume got a bit higher than I had ever dealt with in terms of how many miles I ran per week, because while I was still strength training 3 to 4 times a week, I was at the peak doing 4 40-mile runs per week, and that was definitely more volume, bigger chunks than I had done before. My kind of baseline, just in general, is to do maybe one long run a week of 30 to 40 miles. So it was, my body was pretty much in a constant state of recovery the whole time. So I never really felt great, but I never felt terrible either. And I pay and don't neglect any of the small details. And I'm fortunate enough to be working with some of the best people in the world in terms of trail navigation and nutrition and hydration. Definitely gone much deeper in my preparation for this event, because in the past I kind of just I would just kind of tough it out and figure it out with inadequate nutrition, hydration, and preparation essentially. In this one, we've gone a lot deeper, and I've worked with several experts that have come in to advise, and we're doing all sorts of testing on body composition and hydration and fluid loss, and how our body reacts to temperatures and various environments, and essentially found some pretty interesting things that kind of mark me out as different from other runners or athletes in general. And the first is that my bone and muscle density are both just off the chart for athletes in any discipline. They think this is both, genetic and as well, upbringing has a big part of it as well, considering the way I came up. They also found that I seem to be resistant to the effects of certain, specifically like certain effects associated with dehydration, or the physiological effects of long-term, that we've seen with long-term runners who have to deal with various elements and whatnot, particularly fluid loss. And I think my body just seems to function well under adverse circumstances. And then I also have higher testosterone than they see generally in runners. So overall, my body seems to just kind of be more durable and kind of pretty well suited for these like longer, extreme long distance ultramarathons, although this will be significantly longer than anything I've done before. But in terms of my preparation and just how well I'm suited to it, it seems that at least medical science would imply that I'm very well cut out for this task. So this event's also going to be, it's unique in a number of ways, not just the fact that 500 miles is significantly longer than any of the major ultramarathons out there, or that it's a trail ultramarathon, but it's unique because it's, what you would call a wilderness ultramarathon, or a self-supported trail ultramarathon, meaning that I won't have a support crew. There won't be people, coming along with food and water and supplements and physical therapy. It's just going to be me on a trail with a pack alone. So I'll be responsible for my water, my food, everything I'll have to either carry or collect along the way. To that end, I have a Kufaru pack, which is like an ultralight hunting pack. It's very, very, very durable and has like very good supports and internal frame, but it's not super heavy. So that's going to be loaded up with all the supplies that I'll carry. Food will be just generally a mix of freeze-dried meals and dry goods and foods, nuts and jerky and dried fruit. I'll have a little like a little camp oven with a small titanium pot that's like each is like a few ounces, and just a little canister to heat. You boil some water and mix it with the meals to kind of activate the food. Although you can just mix water in and kind of put them in your pack and let them sit all day, and you can have a cold dinner that way if you don't want to stop and cook. So as far as water goes, there's it's called a SteriPen. It's like a little UV light stick that you put in your water, and for a certain amount of time, and it sterilizes the water. And there's a lot of different filters and a lot of ways you can clean your water from getting any Giardia or Protozoa or whatever. But the UV light allows you to kind of treat larger amounts of water more efficiently and quickly, which, for someone like me who's going to be running, as opposed to just like an average hiker who's just sipping on water, I need a lot more of it. So it'll allow me to treat larger amounts and stay hydrated, more efficiently, and not spend so much time sitting around messing with water, and I can keep moving. As far as shoes, I've always kind of been comfortable running in ultras. I've yet to try a shoe that fits my foot and suits my purposes better. For this one, it'll be the Olympus 5, is like their current trail runner. shoes, wool socks, stuff like that. I'm a big fan of just biting the bullet and paying just a little bit more up front to not regret that, on the trail, because I've had bear hunts or trail ultras before where, when I was shopping for them a few months out, I found a way to save $20 on this or that. Come trail time, I'm there and I'm wet and I'm soaking and something's not keeping me warm, or a sock wore a hole in it or whatever it is, and I'm just like, it's just not worth the regret that you feel in those situations. I believe kind of in addressing all these things from a place of quality, and growing up, my dad always told me you can, buy nice or buy twice. So better to just get something, save a little longer, be a little more patient, be a little more restrained in your spending in other areas, and get something quality the first time. So in combination of using good gear, so I don't have to worry about my gear failing, just to have a pretty simple strategy in terms of addressing or attacking the 500 miles. That is to more or less just set a pace of about 50 miles per day for about 10 days. Shakes out to an ultramarathon every day for 10 days back to back. Just given the fact that the ground's broken, there's going to be inclines. In fact, the elevation gain over the entire course of the route will be equal to climbing Mount Everest twice, actually more than equal to climbing Mount Everest twice. Many of the ground, the trail goes through mountains and forests, volcanoes, passes through a couple obsidian fields full of just black, sharp glass. So it's the pace is naturally going to be slower than if I was just slamming it out on a track or a typical ultramarathon over a paved course or a more tame trail. And so I want to leave kind of address that in a way that something I can do practically and strategically, still be collecting my water and whatnot along the way. So that is just kind of the way that I'll approach it. But on the trail, you never know what happens. There may be things that take longer or go quicker, and you just kind of have to be ready to adapt on the fly. And that has to be the mindset. That flexible mindset has to be the place you occupy the entire time you're there. Because the second that you start to think you can control everything and you see that you can't, it's going to start to slowly slip away from you. And once that string starts to unravel, there's really no getting it back. So you just have to kind of be ready for the adversity and understand that, like, hey, shit's gonna happen, and that's part of it. And that's, quite frankly, that's part of why you're there. I mean, learning how to troubleshoot those situations under pressure makes the rest of life seem like a breeze. Maybe the repercussions are a bit heavier than a lot of people would kind of opt for, but I mean, it's going to be different for everyone. And for me, it's maybe not as risky or as irresponsible as it may seem to run alone through 500 miles of wilderness. But I mean, this is the world that I come from. I come from generations and generations of bear hunters, and I grew up doing this. So it's where I feel comfortable, in a way, and it's where I feel comfortable being outside of my comfort zone, if that makes any sense at all. Because I know that I'm going to be putting myself in a situation where I'm going to suffer a lot, and I'm going to have to confront doubt and all the weakest and most insecure parts of myself. But I also know that I'm doing it in a way that I'm comfortable doing those things, because I know I'm growing, I know I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be, and I know I'm doing exactly what I'm supposed to be doing. This particular route, there's currently at least 2 wildfires either near or on the route. There's also, heat waves passing through that have been reaching over 100 degrees, and there are multiple stretches where I'm going to have to go long distances without water, including one it's exactly a marathon distance. I'll go 26.2 miles without a water source. So there's going to be some strategy in navigating these things. It's not like I can just run and run and run and run, without worrying. I have to think about water or time of day, and maybe my water is low and I have to have to run a marathon without needing fresh water. Then maybe I'm going to choose to wait till the evening to start that and go, try to get a few hours of, sleep in the shade somewhere while the heat of the day passes first. So I had initially started to kind of develop a schedule for running in the day, and then for, most nights, probably not every night, stopping and sleeping a little bit. But the truth is, once I started to kind of address things from a closer distance and just kind of think back to all the long distance hunts and stuff I've been on in the past, I realized that it's pretty naive to go in thinking I'm going to be able to impose my own schedule on nature and all that. So I'm going to flow with it. We'll see what happens. My priority is to have a good time. I'm not trying to set any pace record. No one's, to my knowledge, ever run this specific route before. Although I do believe that I know a number of people have run about 429 miles of the 500 plus mile route that I'm doing. And I believe the fastest known time on that is just 8 days or a touch under 8 days. If I do, everything does go, according to plan, and I manage to finish the 500 plus miles in 10 days, I would be roughly on pace with the fastest known time for, 429 miles of the course that I'm doing. But I'm not putting any pressure on myself. I really don't care about breaking records or getting any more records or doing anything like that. This one's just for me and for fun, and to kind of say goodbye to my dad in my own way, and be out there and be where I belong, doing what I'm supposed to be doing. Well, I have a little, it's made by a company called First Light, collaborating with a company called Nemo. And it's just a small little ultralight tent, and it's super easy to set up. It's like, it has these little prongs, and it's, 90 seconds to set this thing up. It's not a pop-up or anything. You pull everything out, fold it out, snap it up, and snap this thing, and it's ready to go. The overall weight's like 2.5 pounds. It's super light. Same thing, I have like I think it weighs a pound, but this little sleeping bag that compresses down to about this big. And so it's summer, you know, and I'm going to be running essentially literally across the state of Oregon. So it will be hot during the day, but it gets pretty chilly at night, but nothing to the point where I need to bring heavy, you know, weather gear or anything. So a pretty light sleeping bag and a tent is all I'm gonna need. So whenever I need to sleep, I'll be able to, you know, actually lay down and stretch out and not just have to lie, you know, sit against a tree or anything. But the whole entire sleeping setup's like 3.5 pounds or something. So, you know, so four and change with the little mat that I have that goes with it. But it's well worth that little bit of weight to be able to actually sit down and stretch out. Same thing, you know, with the few ounces of a little mini, you know, ultralight stove is also worth it to have hot food as opposed to just eating a trail mix and beef jerky the whole time, you know. So I'm going in really just looking to have fun with this one. I've essentially adopted every mindset one could adopt in terms of running past ultramarathons, especially since my training volume is a lot higher than a lot of other runners. So I get the opportunity to spend time in ultra distance runs pretty much every week, you know, in my own running at least once, if not more. So I've been everything from angry and, you know, intense to just kind of zen and open, and I kind of just realized that the calm mindset suits me more. I find it to be kind of a meditative, therapeutic thing, even, you know, in the later stages as the pain gets there. It's a very valuable skill set in life as well as running, or pretty much anything you do, to be able to just be calm under pressure. So, you know, when your feet are hurting, when it's hot, when you're not sure, you know, when this is going to end or what's around the next bend or when the next water is or whatever, if you can just stay calm and keep your mind open and easy and objective, that's more or less a superpower I've found, and either through my own experiences or either just being born a certain way, I've kind of always had a talent to be able to do that. And so I try to embrace that when I'm running, because that just seems to be the way I'm naturally wired. But for some people, you know, you see, you know, all sorts of people do all sorts of things, but for me, that's kind of what I find works best. And then on this particular run, I think it's probably even more important because I'm going to have to make decisions in terms of navigating the trail itself, splits, you know, any closures, moving around stuff, you know, wildfires, etc. And as well as, you know, planning water source to water source, you know, when to sleep, when not to sleep, when the trail's safe to push through at night, you know, and navigating any cliffs or ledges or anything like that as well. So I think, you know, it's more important than ever to kind of just stay true to myself in that regard. Well, this is the last time you guys will hear from me until after the deed is done. Thanks for watching, and stay tuned for part 3, where we tell the story, whatever that story happens to be.